Hello, everybody. It's your boy, Kai. Welcome to the Vibe with Kai podcast, where today I'm sitting with Chelsea Maccarone, who is a licensed mental health counselor at Healthy Minds and More Counseling Services. So excited because today we're going to be talking about how COVID has been affecting people's mental health. It's not just a physical thing. It's been a thing that has affected many people's mental health. We're going to talk about the details about that. But let me introduce you to the person that you either see on your screen or you're listening to on my podcast right now. You are watching somebody who became a licensed mental health counselor in 2016 and has worked with individuals who have had a variety of areas for improvement and growth, including but not limited to depression, anxiety, marital relationship concerns, parenting problems, low self-esteem, codependency, and so much more. Checking all those boxes there. You just do it all. You just do it all. She has an eclectic therapy style where she utilizes interventions, techniques, and theories to best suit you in a way that speaks your language. She tends to gravitate towards person-centered and solution-focused. What is that word? Modalities?
Reality.
Did I learn a new word today? I think I learned a new word today. That was not on the vocab test in the eighth grade. It wasn't. That wasn't on there. So she believes in holistic wellness and health and has a warm approach to clients. She tends to view the therapeutic relationship as her helping you guide and navigate your journey. Please, friends, welcome Chelsea Maccarone. Hi, how are you?
Hi. Thank you so much for having me, Kai.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to sit and chat with me. I'm super excited because when you had said that you wanted to do this topic, I'm like, this is not a normal topic that people usually pitch to me. When
Really?
yeah, it doesn't happen. Like usually, like because a lot of my content surrounds like obviously like anxiety, depression, like all that kind of stuff, right? ADHD, introversion, but like never has anybody pitched this specific thing about how COVID, something that has been so prevalent in our lives for the last 3 years when the world caught on fire, and it's been so prevalent in everybody's life, like around the world. And I feel like nobody really talks about like the mental effect that COVID has had, whether you've had it or not, right?
Yeah.
Just the effect that it's had on the world. So we're going to be talking about that today. But before we get into that, how are you? How's your day? How's your life? What's going on? Tell me all about you.
I'm good. Everything's really good. I can't complain. I've got a little one. She's
Mhm.
with dad right now, so
Yeah.
hopefully you won't hear them
Oh,
when they come home.
that's fine. That's fine.
But yeah, I mean, everything's really good. My grandma was just visiting. Like,
Oh,
yeah,
nice. Nice. That's amazing. So like
so
so what's your story? So obviously you have this practice, you get to work with people every single day to help them in a variety of ways. What got you started with this? How did you even begin this journey?
short version or the long version.
Let's see all of the above.
Okay, so I was working with kids as a kid myself. I was working summer camps as a teenager,
Hmm.
and we had little littles, and a little ran into the street. Long story short, we got him to safety, and I was like, What happened? Why were you running into the street? Like, what was going on?" And where everyone's yelling at him, like, "You shouldn't do that." He's like, "I wanted to kill myself." He
Oh
was
my,
like 6 or 7.
oh my
And that
God.
was when I knew I wanted to help people. At what
Yeah.
capacity? I had no idea. I was 16 years old. I didn't know how I was going to make a difference. I didn't know what I was going to do. But I just knew I had to. And so from then on, you finish school, you go to college, go to grad school, la, la, la. And through a lot of series of events, I
Make it
found
sound
myself,
so easy. Like it was just like, go to school, go to grad school,
oh, it was
go get
not
something to eat real quick.
easy. It was not easy. I managed to get a 4 year degree in 6.
I don't know why, but the math wasn't mathing like in the moment, and I was like, "Congratulations, that's great, good for you."
Yeah. So my undergrad was not an easy journey. Graduate
Sure.
school is a little bit easier. I think I had a
Mhm.
little more maturity
Right,
under
right,
my belt. Um, and so yeah, so I mean, yeah, it was not an easy journey at all. But
right.
my first my first job out of grad school, I was actually like living out of my car.
Oh wow,
And
living
like,
out of your
yeah, so
car.
I was like couch surfing and like
Oh my
staying
God.
with family and friends. And I
Yeah.
had pets at the time, and like pets were dispersed. And yeah, so
Oh
it was
my
not an
God.
easy journey.
But it's amazing how that kind of journey makes you who you are today, right? Like in the moment, you don't really think about how it's like building up this like strength that you can like use in the future, because like in the moment you're like, I'm looking for a place to stay. I'm looking for things to eat. I'm looking to survive.
Yeah.
You're not really like thinking like I guess that like that way for the future. But then you look back at it now, and like I guess I'll ask you, when you look back at those moments now, what are you thankful? Are you mad? Are you happy? Like what thought comes to your head?
Oh, I'm not mad. I wouldn't say happy, but definitely grateful. Because through adversity, I don't know the saying, but I'm sure something comes through it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it made me stronger, made me more resilient, made me
Mm-hmm.
recognize hard work. I mean, I was working, but I was
Yeah.
making less than a quarter of what my degree
Right.
cost.
Sure. Sure.
But you just figure it out and you make it work. And it's
Yeah.
kind of given me like a no excuses lifestyle
Mm.
while
Mhm.
also finding grace in the process.
Right. Right. Right.
So
So
yeah,
how
so
did you end up getting to the healthy minds and more counseling? How did so you were how did you get from living out of your car to having a successful counseling service that helps people, in and around your life? How did you get to that?
it's also like a 10-year journey.
I would imagine so. That's I mean, it didn't happen overnight, is what you're saying? No?
No, it didn't.
Oh man.
Although it felt like it after a while because it was
Yeah.
like, you know how bamboo, you like plant the seed and
Yeah.
it takes
Mhm.
5 years under the soil,
Yeah.
growing, and then it's like 90 feet in like 90
Yeah.
days or something outrageous, whatever. It was kind of like that. Like it was just like a lot of like little seed planting, and then just
Mm.
like the last 6 to 8 months, it was just like pew.
Wow.
Um, but yeah, so I was working in agencies and I started a private practice, but this was before like telehealth was like a really big thing, and I was having a hard time getting credentialed and la la la, whole
Mhm.
thing. And so, I just stayed cozy working at agencies, working at private drug treatment centers and doing
Mhm.
that. And then COVID hit.
Wow. And then
And
everything, and of course, when COVID hit, everything was a-okay.
well, the world kind of shut down, but that
Yeah.
changed mental health, like the profession,
Yeah, I'm sure.
in I think a really good way because we all had to go like virtual.
Yeah.
And I was working at an agency at the time, and we had a lot of low socioeconomic status,
Mhm.
SES for short, clientele, and they didn't have cars and they couldn't get to therapy and they couldn't do
Yeah.
this and blah, blah, blah. And so here you have a phone, you go to the Dunkin' and get on their Wi Fi, and now you can have therapy.
Yeah.
And
So you're
all
saying
these other
it's made it more accessible, is what you're saying, for people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Especially our parents who had kids and couldn't get
Yeah.
childcare, whatever. So it made it a lot more accessible. Other things helped out with us as clinicians for telehealth. A lot more platforms opened up and came accessible for us as well. And so during that time, towards like I don't want to say the end of COVID because it's still here, but towards
What?
the
What? I thought we solved it. It's still happening?
it's still
Oh
happening.
man. I thought they had a pill. Like you just pop a little
Yeah,
Advil.
well, I mean, I guess yes, COVID's happening, but then there's
Yeah.
also still the effects of COVID
Yeah.
happening, mental
Absolutely.
health wise.
Hmm.
But yeah, so anyway, towards like the middle to end of 21, maybe I just relaunched my business in like a different capacity, like kind
Yeah.
of rebranded a little bit, and it just got so big that April 22, I quit my agency job and did this full time, and now I'm officially a group practice,
That's amazing.
and I just onboarded a new therapist and
Nice.
looking to onboard more.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I'm curious because I kind of view this the same way for me, and I'm curious if you view the pandemic this way. I always consider the pandemic to be the best worst thing to happen for a lot of people, right? Like for me, like it changed my life. If it weren't for the pandemic, I like you and I probably would not be talking right now. I 100% would not have the platform I have right now. And some of the people that I know, some of the people that are my closest friends today, I don't know if they would be in my life even. And so while obviously it's awful, like all of the things that have gone down, over the last couple of years, in a weird way, I'm like thankful because it's changed my life, and I know it's changed your life, and it's changed the lives of so many people. Is that how you view it too, in a
There's
way?
that through adversity,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
that same
Hmm.
kind of theme. Yeah, I mean, I view that for some people that way. I mean, there's a lot of people who lost a lot of
Yes,
loved ones.
yes.
Um, but again, through grief and loss, I think there's lessons there as well.
Mhm.
Another topic for another time. But
Right, right.
yeah, I think that the system or a few systems have changed for the better, and
Hmm.
then maybe a few systems that maybe haven't changed for the better. Things have been illuminated that need to change,
Right,
and so maybe the change hasn't happened, but the need has been now presented, and so the change can happen.
right, right.
So I think a lot of good things did come out of the pandemic.
Right, right. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about this a little bit more because, good Lord, the pandemic and its effects on mental health around the world. So I guess I'll start with like an overarching question here, which is, in your experience with the things that you've experienced, the people that you've talked to, over the last couple of years, how has COVID played a role in a person's long-term mental health?
Ah. So this is like it's a very layered question, because I find that different generations and different populations it affects differently.
Okay.
And so I want to say the theme that I've seen is isolation.
Mm,
And we as a species are social creatures, and
mhm,
we were isolated for, depending on what part of the country or world you were in, for years. And so that plays a heavy role on depression, anxiety. I've even seen a little bit of that ADHD kind of stuff that you touched on earlier, kind of creeping up too.
yeah.
And I'm not sure exactly why, like what about COVID created that.
Mhm,
But the isolation component, I think, has aged the elderly population
mm,
tremendously. Like we talk about the COVID calendar. I'm in South Florida. There's a huge elderly population here.
sure.
And we talk about this COVID calendar, and it just really rapidly aged the population.
Mhm,
Because let's just say, oh, I go to Canasta on this day and I do this on this day, whatever. And they had a socialization in their routine, and now that's done.
right.
And they're now isolating or bubbling or whatever, and they're not getting that brain stimulation, that mental stimulation. And so, long term, I mean, they're
Yeah.
already elderly, so there's really no long term, it's sad to
Mhm,
say, effects there. But I think as a society, if you had a period of isolation, it's definitely going to affect, because trauma is generational. You think of
mhm,
any um, population that went through war,
mhm,
generations down, it's still affecting them.
mhm.
So it's still kind of to be seen long
Right,
term effects.
right. Right. Yeah. And I'm glad that you brought up the isolation part because that was something that I wanted to just kind of talk about in general because obviously in March 2020 is pretty much when everything started to really like shut down, right? And it was encouraged and like we didn't have the understanding of COVID then as we did now because like at the time like people were like we were like washing down our
I
groceries
was just
like
thinking that.
like we had no idea really how it was passed along but I mean we had so many different theories about how it all got passed and things like that and it was encouraged to legitimately stay away from people like don't be around people at all,
Mhm.
right? And if you are going to be around them, like obviously the 6 foot distance, and I mean, actually, even at the time, even in early 2020, like that, even the 6 foot thing wasn't a
That
thing.
wasn't a thing yet. It was
Yeah.
like behind glass, like come to
Hmm.
the house, stay
Yeah.
outside, and we'll wave.
Right. Like stay in your, like don't even get out of your car. Like wave with the window cracked and be like, "Hey, I'm here. Nice to see you."
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And so, the world was very different back then, but we were encouraged to isolate for our safety, right? And
Mhm.
because of that, isolation became a normal practice. Distance became a normal practice. So I'm glad that you brought up isolation because I was curious with the people that you talk to and work with every day, how much has that isolation affected them in now, I guess now in like 2023? Like we're
I'm
three
seeing
years
a
into this.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of my young adults who were
Mm,
in middle school or high school around the
yes.
shutdown time. The depression is insane in that
Mhm.
population.
Yeah. They lost years of school. Like they
They
weren't in
lost
school.
years of their developmental
Yes.
milestone. Like
Hmm.
adolescence has huge developmental milestones. I mean, you're building independence, you're learning who you are, you're you know, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Like
Yeah.
you're
Hmm.
exploring and experimenting in it, and you're coming out of this still a virgin at
Yeah.
19, 20 years old because you didn't have contact with
Yeah.
anybody. You
Yeah.
know, or you did, and like you were afraid for the rest of your life because you thought you
Hmm.
got COVID, whatever. But
Sure.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, it really stunted a lot of the development in that population as well. And so long-term effects, we'll see
Yeah.
what happens there. But yeah, I mean, a lot of them have a lot of depression, low self-esteem issues because the only interaction they had with people was on the internet, was
Yes.
through Instagram and social media. And we put our best foot forward. That's
Yeah.
our highlight reel. Nobody sees you living out of your car on social
Right.
media.
Right. Right.
Um, and so, yeah, so a lot of that comparison stuff.
Yeah. I
I
think
want
you've
to
been reading
say,
my notes because my next question, legitimately right under the question I had asked about distance, was about can you speak about young adults and COVID? I think, are you looking at my screen right now? I
oh
think
my
you're
gosh,
looking at
that's
my
so
screen.
funny. And you know, it's so funny because I was gonna make notes of like talking points, and I was like, I
Yeah.
can't do that. Like, I'm not gonna like be comfortable doing that. I'm gonna be
I
like,
make notes all the time and I never stick with them because like usually like a lot of the times my questions are spurned off of your answers to questions, right? So like it's like I'll have a ton of questions and like ideas and topics and I'll get to like maybe a third of them and I'm like, oh, okay,
or
well,
your guest gets to them first. You know,
no,
either
like
way.
my guess is like looking at my screen, reading all my notes and all that jazz. No, but no,
We're
seriously, I'm glad that you
disconnected. What
brought
can I
up.
say?
Yeah, right. But no, I'm glad that you brought up the young adults because and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but over the last couple of years with our young men and women, the suicide rate has spiked significantly.
Okay, so you read my brain that time.
Yes. Yes, we're just on the same page today. I love it. No, please, yeah, go ahead. Mhm.
Yeah, no, that is exactly what I was going to say. I was like, I don't have the statistics, but the
Yeah.
suicide rate must have skyrocketed.
Hmm. Hmm. It's scary. It's scary because they just lost so much. And I don't know if people fully understand how affected our young men and women are by this yet. I think that we haven't looked as deeply into the psyche of, Gen Z and Gen Alpha as much as we should because it is scary. And I've also found that I partner up with an organization called Link, which is a organization that partners up Gen Z like trained Gen Z mentors with like younger Gen Z and Gen Alpha. And the reason that they created this was because they found that a lot of Gen Z and Gen Alpha, they don't really want to go to therapy because they feel as though their therapist doesn't understand what it's like to be their age. Because I saw the average age of a therapist in the United States is 42 years old. 42. And so a lot of these young people, understandably so, are like just be like they're just like why you don't know what it's like, if the therapist obviously has like the training and the insight, they just feel like I don't know if this person can understand me.
Yeah, and I think that and I don't know if this is like the therapist's responsibility or if it's just like not having like that right education or reach, but like that's our job is to understand.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
so just because we haven't been there personally
Mhm.
doesn't mean that we don't have the capacity to hold space and
Yeah.
like non-judgmentally, unbiased, hear what you have to say.
Right.
Um, without like obviously breaking HIPAA or whatever, but like I used to have this one teen and she eventually came out and started sharing a little bit more about like her substance misuse and stuff like that. And she was like, "You're not going to tell me not to do it." I was like, "You are 17 years old. Like, sex,
Mm-hmm.
drug, and rock and roll. Like, that's
Mm-hmm.
developmentally normal. But here are my concerns. Like, here's the safety stuff. But like, she was so shocked that she had a therapist that wasn't telling her like not to do it.
Yeah.
She's like,
Yeah.
I'm like, you're an adult. You're supposed to tell me not to do it. I'm like, no, I'm
Right.
your therapist. Like, I am
Mm-hmm.
here to help you process. Like, why are you doing it? Where is it coming
Right.
from? What void is it filling? How is it helping you? How is it harming you? You know, that's what
Right.
I'm here for.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
so, for that younger generation, like, we need to get the word out that that's what our jobs are. And whether we're 42, 22, 32, however old your therapist is, they should be a blank canvas for you. Um, so that's just kind of my take on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And we were kind of alluding to this before about, the amount of loss that has taken place since, COVID began. And I mean, people losing family and friends and loved ones and coworkers and colleagues, all types of people. We've lost millions of people over the last couple of years, which is not not an easy thing to navigate on its own, let alone when it's happening so often to the point that I feel like as a society we've gotten kind of numb to it in a weird, awkward, scary way, And I'm curious, like, for the people from the people that you've talked with, how do you feel people are faring with the loss side, involving COVID?
Right. So that long list of specialties, grief and loss isn't really one of them. It's kind of not a big population that I serve. So I really don't see too much of that
Mm-hmm.
specifically. So I really can't answer.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. No, I think that's
But
fair.
I think that it's part of that isolation. It's
Mm-hmm.
compounding that isolation component,
Right.
right? Like, you have been isolated from work or school and from your friends, and now you've actually lost someone that you loved to death, to
Yeah.
this disease,
Mm-hmm.
and or to this pandemic. And so that compounds. Now you're feeling alone, especially if it was like a parent or a
Right.
spouse, or gosh forbid, a child,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm curious, what about the people that were diagnosed with, are dealing with mental health struggles before the pandemic and now heading into the pandemic and, as we, continue to navigate, um, what are you finding with those people? Like, have things gotten, I guess, worse? Have things gotten better? Has it stayed the same? How is my neurospicy family doing that was neurospicy before the pandemic? How are they holding up?
So my introverts are loving it. So I'm an introvert as well.
Yeah,
And oh my God, working from home was my
yeah,
jam. I was like, it was the best. So
yeah.
my introverts really liked being isolated, myself included.
Mhm.
It did get lonely, but they would
Yeah,
have their own coping way of like still being social. Like, just because you're introverted doesn't mean you're antisocial. I'm sure your followers know that, but the way I like to describe it is extroverts, they get their battery charged by being around people.
yes. Hmm.
And so when they're kind of isolated, they charge up by going and doing something social, and they like people, and introverts like people, but the way they get their battery charged is being alone.
Hmm.
And so when they're out socializing, they need alone time to charge their
Yes.
battery. So it's not like, oh, I'm antisocial and hate people, but
Right.
so yeah, so they got a lot of like charged batteries,
Yeah, yeah,
and so I think that like they're really just functioning on full batteries, and
yeah.
it really spoke their language.
Right, right.
Um,
It's fun. I'm glad that you said that because I want people to listen closely to what was just said because I think one of the most common misconceptions about introversion is that people just assume that introverts are shy, right? And that's not necessarily true. I am not shy, right? I don't necessarily want a small talk. I don't, and my battery, to your point, drains a lot faster when I'm around people. But like if my battery's full and I know what situation I'm walking into, and I'm mentally prepared for it, I'm definitely not shy at all. Like I'll approach people, I'll have conversations with people. I'm able to hold my own in that regard. But I think sometimes people, not that shyness cannot be like one of the symptoms or whatever of introversion, but Like it is not necessarily the indicator that you're an introvert, because there's shy extroverts,
Mhm.
there's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
very
it's
gray
just how your
area.
battery charges.
Yeah, exactly. um so with all of that being said, people have been separated from people for a long time. Reconnecting with people is tough, right? What would you say to somebody that has gone maybe the last couple of years distancing themselves or isolating themselves for health reasons, right? And they're trying to like rework their way back into socializing more and all that, but they're just nervous. If they were listening right now, what would you say to them?
Oh, well, so as a therapist, I would ask more questions
Yeah.
because that's what we do. So it's kind of hard to just like give like a blanket statement, but
Mhm.
what I find works a lot with my clients is when they feel prepared or they feel equipped, they feel more confident, and that nervousness kind of dwindles.
Right.
Also, too, like when you feel anxious or nervous about something and you avoid it, the bigger the anxiety gets. So
Hmm.
I always encourage to like kind of walk through the discomfort.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so you've seen me like taking sips of water. Like that's one of my tricks that whenever like I'm in the middle of something social and I start to like get a little nervous, like I'll take a sip of water because it gives me a break. It gives me a beat to like recenter and get grounded again.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like one of my little tips for that. And so yeah, so like entering social situations, like learning those little tricks for
Mm-hmm.
yourself to help you feel equipped, to help you feel a little more confident. And then it just takes 5 seconds of courage, like just kind of like walking through the discomfort. It'll be there, you're going to feel it.
Yeah.
But the more and more you do it, I guess that's kind of like that desensitization
Yeah.
technique that doesn't always work, but usually does.
It's
Yeah.
funny. It's funny that you brought that up, because I was actually going to make a video about this tonight actually, but I saw an article online that was talking about like when people say in between like them speaking, and how we as a society should like stop frowning upon that, because saying things like or like those kind of like idioms there, I'm doing it now but like it
Because we're
like
talking
and
about it, it's
yeah,
introduced into
right
their
now
consciousness
I'm going
now.
to hear it like over and over and over again, but it kind of indicates the next step in whatever is being told. Like it's okay to formulate your thoughts before it's being said. Like it's like, obviously if you're just like doing, I guess, a public speaking engagement and you're in front of like millions of people, and like sure, whatever, but like if we're in the middle of like a basic conversation and I just happen to bust out an I don't want to have to think like, oh, why did I say that? Like that's just extra anxiousness on my end. But it can actually be a good indicator communication wise, a shift in conversation. It can be an indicator of a different thought, or when you're throwing out different ideas and things like that. It's actually a really good indicator. This article was saying. So I was actually going to make a video about that, because I thought that was really really interesting. I never thought of that before.
It reminds me of Alice in Wonderland, the from Umbridge.
Whenever I hear Umbridge, I think of Harry Potter.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
she was. What's your name? Your name is from Umbridge. Yeah,
There's
I
gonna be
mean,
like five people that are like, I get that reference.
there's like 5 people.
And we're two of them.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminds me, like, I don't know, back in the day, I feel like it was like some MTV show or whatever where they'd have like the ticker of how many times the person says the
Yeah,
whatever word, whether it be
yeah.
or like or whatever. And it's just like boom, 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 boom.
That would be nice.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
but I think you're right, like just that shifting from one thought to the
Mhm.
other or gathering an idea.
Yeah, yeah. I thought that was really interesting. I had never thought of that before. Um, I want to talk about what you think of, how much do you think, I guess, media coverage of COVID has played a role in a person's like mental health, and kind of navigating those waters. Obviously, media coverage has played no role at all, at all.
No,
it's just
and
kind of
I'm
that.
also not a good poker face therapist. I don't know if you noticed. Like everybody
Tell me
pictures
how
like
you
a
really
therapist.
feel.
Tell me how you feel. No, I am not that therapist.
So,
um,
what are your thoughts on, how the media coverage has, played a role in people's mental health surrounding COVID?
Surrounding everything.
Well, yeah, well, yeah, yeah.
So anytime I have a client that has anxiety, I tell them to turn off the news.
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't know if that answers your
It
question.
does. Why are you saying that it's not all good news out there? Is that what you're
I
suggesting?
follow Thanks Good News on Instagram.
I
Like,
need to do
that's
that.
about it.
I need to
Um,
do that.
so there's alarmists out
Yeah,
there, and
yeah.
and the thing is that's what sells, and the news is a business.
Hmm.
It just is. I mean, we don't have Walter Cronkite anymore, just
Right,
reading it from a piece of paper
right,
with no,
right.
tone and inflection and
Hmm.
all that stuff. And so it could be so and so stubbed their toe. Is their toe okay? Is their toe broken? Let's go and cut to Joe. Joe, how's his toe? Like, and it's just this like insane, and it's something like benign. And now all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, how's his toe? And you're like freaking out about this guy's toe, and it's just so. So they'll take like a little tiny thing and make it big so that they can sell.
Now I need to know how the toe is. Now I'm emotionally
Cliffhanger. Tune
invested.
in next week for the toe. Five
I need
o'clock
to know.
news.
This is, oh man, I have to wait till episode 2 to find out about Joe's toe. Oh man. Oh boy.
So, I mean, imagine that's what they do for something small. So,
Yeah, yeah,
what about something big?
yeah.
And,
Mhm.
not to get political, but therapy is political. There was a big political outburst during COVID, and
Mhm.
they turned a pandemic, a health crisis, political. I don't care what side you stand on. It was political.
It was correct.
And then we had all that other stuff going on,
Mhm.
and the other stuff, and the other stuff. And it was just like news. And now we're sitting at home, we're isolated, we're told not to go anywhere, and we're watching the news about the pandemic, we're watching the news about this, we're watching the news about that, absorbing all the, oh my God, it's Joe, oh my God,
Yes.
like we're
How was his toe?
and we're like sitting and we're
Yeah.
sitting. And so if we think that our input is not affecting what's going on inside of us,
Hmm.
we're we're kidding ourselves, And so I always say protect your input,
Hmm.
guard your input, like guard yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
What comes in goes out.
Right,
Just
right.
like you are what you eat. If you're eating like garbage, you're going to feel like garbage. If you're
Mhm.
consuming garbage, you're going to feel garbage.
I had McDonald's today, so I feel attacked.
I'm sorry.
I feel attacked right now.
Does your tummy hurt?
No, but my toe is stubbed.
Hey, listen, you're the one who said McDonald's was garbage. I
I
didn't say
I listen, it's really good garbage, in my opinion.
that.
Don't judge me. No judgment.
I'm not judging at all. This is a safe space.
I love it. Yeah, it's just amazing how I give. I was saying this to a friend the other day. I actually give the human race credit, right? Because like just like the last 3 years, right? We didn't like we panicked, but we didn't like movie panic. Like if this was like if the last 3 years were a Steven Spielberg like action sci-fi adventure, when the world is on fire and there's a deadly virus going around, like we're talking like zombies, we're talking like, people like just all kinds of chaos. Don't get me wrong, we do see some of that, but like as like in general,
I'm like, were you at the stores? Did you see what happened with toilet paper and paper
but
towels?
like it didn't last that long though, right? Because like now if you and I wanted to go get toilet paper, we could go get toilet paper, right?
Yeah, as long as there's no hurricane down here.
Well, right,
Because
right,
they do
right.
the same thing with gas.
Yes, yes.
Hurricane, they do it with
Or
the gas,
if
toilet
there's
paper, and
snow
paper
up
towels.
here, like if there's snow coming, then like yeah, it all goes to shit. But like we became as a society so numb to like the craziness that they literally reported that there has been potential contact with aliens not of this planet, and we were like,
Whatever.
okay, sure, why not? like if aliens came and invaded the earth right now, would any of us be surprised?
No.
I don't think so. I
You'd
wouldn't
be
be.
like, oh, okay.
I'm like, oh,
The
this.
Simpsons knew it.
Yes,
They knew it. They
exactly.
called
This was
it.
a Simpsons episode like 12 years ago. They predicted this whole thing. Oh, Homer. That's so funny. Yeah, I kind of give us credit though, because like we're doing okay. We're not perfect, and we're kind of all up here and dealing with it, but we're okay, right? I thank you for the
Define okay, right? Here's a therapist question. Define okay. What
define
does it
okay.
mean to
That's right. As a
you?
therapist, you're not supposed to give me answers. I have to find the answers on my own, right?
So as an existential therapist, absolutely, you have
Uh,
the answers with and Adlerian actually. Yes. So yes.
I can't. Oh my gosh. Well, I guess with that being said, though, like let's just this is actually the perfect um uh uh final question, because once again I think that you're reading my notes, because this is the actual final question that I had. I'm talking about like hope and like the feeling of some sort of hope and security and brightness for the future. And if there's somebody that's watching or listening to this right now that just feels hopeless because of the pandemic for whatever reason it may be, they're just feeling down and all of that, and they're listening or watching right now, what would you say to them?
Mm. So through adversity, right? Like through those dark times, you can't always see the reason. You
Mm-hmm.
can't always see um, why it's happening or what the purpose, what the lesson is, because you're in the middle of it. You're in the storm. You're in the tunnel. You're in the depths of it. It stinks. It's dark. It's wet. It's cold. It
Mm-hmm.
sucks.
Yeah,
Keep going,
yeah,
because at the end of that tunnel there's that beautiful light. At the end of the tunnel there's that, oh, that's why moment.
yeah.
And there's a stronger version of you, there's a better version of you at the end of that tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
And I can personally testify that because I've been in the tunnel a few times
Me too.
and came out a shinier me. And pretty much everybody I know,
Yeah.
professionally and personally, has been in tunnels and they come out the other end, and it's just always a growth. It's
Mhm.
always a bigger, better outcome.
Yes. Unless you're in the Lincoln Tunnel coming from New York and you exit the tunnel, you end up in New Jersey. So I don't know about the whole bright, bright and happy thing, but I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I had to make a joke about New Jersey. I'm sorry, New Jersey. I was born and raised in New Jersey, so I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's also like shining silver lining to New Jersey too. It's like more affordable to live, and you can get a
It
little bit of
is.
a backyard, and
Yes. Yes.
you don't have, hey, get out of the
Look
way.
at Southern Florida sticking up for the state of New Jersey. Who'd have thunk?
Well, I don't know. My mom's a New Yorker, so I don't know why I'm doing that either.
I'm surprised. You're pissing off somebody. I don't know who. Somebody's mad right now.
Because I stood up for New Jersey. And
Yes.
listen, we just talked about hope, and here I am giving you the silver lining and the hopeful. And
It's all my fault though. That's 100% my fault, because I had to shit on New Jersey for like 3 seconds, and I feel like I grew up there, so it's okay. I'm allowed to make fun of New Jersey. Dang it. But anyway, I listen. I appreciate you and your time and your insight and your knowledge, and like honestly, you're coming back on because we have a lot to talk about still.
okay, I would love that.
Okay, I'm telling you
Sincerely, I
now.
would.
Okay, no takesy backsies. This is recorded.
That's fine.
So when
I
I
had a lot
invite
of
you
fun.
back
It was
on and
great.
you're like, nah, I'm gonna be like, but I'm gonna play the recording. I'm gonna be like, you said you would.
No, no, I'll come back.
Okay, South Florida. Okay. But no, honestly, thank you so much for sitting down with me. Friends, if you enjoyed listening to this wonderful person that you see and you hear on your screen, this is Chelsea Maccarone.
Hi.
Minds and more counseling, sir. I'm putting this. I don't know. Actually, I don't know which way you would be in
You're
the.
this way on my
She's
screen.
either up here, down here, or over there. Either way,
The Brady Bunch.
this person right here is Chelsea Maccarone, licensed mental health counselor, Healthy Minds and More counseling services. I'm going to include a link to her website in the description of this presentation here. That way you can go hit her up, and I'm also going to have all of your Healthy Minds social media. I sound like an old man. Social media, those thingies. I'm gonna have the social media handles there as well. And of course, if you like me If you like me, you can follow me on all of your favorite social media platforms at The Vibe with Kai, or visit my official website at thevibewithkai.com. Or you can visit me on Patreon, where you're going to get even more exclusive mental health content that you won't see anywhere else, because that's how I roll. So go do that. So with
Yeah,
that
you
said,
gotta
my
keep
friend,
listening and
yeah,
hear about Joe.
yes, I'm gonna give a Joe stubbed toe update on my
We
Patreon.
gotta come
This
back.
this is some really serious stuff. I need to know about Joe's toe. I love it. Everybody, thank you so much for watching, for listening. Much love, good vibes. Thank you, Chelsea, for hanging out with me. This is your boy Kai, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye.